Thank you, Grace. So welcome everyone, and especially to people who are turning up here for the first time, and welcome. And Grace, of course, as I mentioned to you before, just to start off, you got permission anytime to message or interrupt if you feel I'm going too fast or basically doing that kind of stuff. So look, it's interesting. I'm just going to start by saying one of the things we're in a, I mean, stating the obvious to say we're in a challenging time. And well, part of this time is we're all growing very fast and we're all learning and we're all shifting. And one of my things right now, which I'm really growing and shifting, is that I've been learning the last 24 hours about the importance of slowing down and doing things a little bit faster in some parts when teaching, to work a little bit harder to make it much simpler and comprehensible for people. Because and all of us have got our little unique challenges that we're dealing with that we find hard. And one of my ones, and which I've forgotten, is I've really spent probably about 35 years, without exaggerating, preparing for this time, knowing to a large degree it was going to come, and studying every mystery school, Bible, financial teacher type teaching I could find, preparing for this. And so seeing things very clearly what are coming, watching it play out in perfect detail to the script that I've been getting shown and seen. So a franticness comes into me to go, gosh, everyone, can't you all see what I'm seeing? And running around just kind of then saying it and assuming everyone has to get what I'm saying because I'm seeing it so clearly. And I've realized the last 24 hours that each of us have been given different paths, and there's certain things that you're very good at which I'm not. Like, for example, I'm very poor at practical things, as many of you know, and you would probably walk into my house and say, why haven't you fixed that particular thing? And I'd be like, oh, well, I'm not quite sure how to do it. And you would look at me and go, huh? Like Robert, who's here, is a very practical guy, and he would probably be horrified at some of the things in my house right now that we haven't fixed. And, you know, to him it would be natural. So I have asked Grace specifically to, you know, step in, and if she feels I'm going too fast, or, you know, to step in and kind of slow me down and clarify and help me integrate things if I have to. So, like I said, we're all learning right now, because this is a pretty serious message and teaching and time. And I really do want to ensure that over the coming days, because I'll be stepping up my teaching to help train people for what's to come and show you what's coming, to ensure that people navigate it as smoothly as they can. And in saying as smoothly as they can, everyone's going to find this time fairly challenging. And probably my starting comment would be, it's a little bit like if you get told you've got cancer, or you get told you've got a serious back injury or neck injury, as what happened to me at one stage last year. Now, you can go into denial and pretend it's not happening, which I had happened to someone a little while ago who injured their back and ended up going into so much pain. It was worse than childbirth for them 24/7, and they've got to get surgery and everything. I shat myself and took instant action. So the point I'm saying is, the best thing you can do right now is accept the truthful reality of where things are at right now without any form of denial whatsoever, which in simple terms means we're heading straight into martial law in record time, which, considering we've grown up in a world where virtually, I'm sure no one here has ever had military service, with no compulsory military service, I've only ever know what it's like by watching a movie or what they've read in books and heard from their grandparents. So it's very important to adapt pretty quickly. And based on the laws of consciousness that I've been teaching in recent weeks, that we do create our own reality, to start being more socially responsible and take a form of martial law within our own life. And in other words, and in our society, in a form of leadership, to ensure that all of us start to shift what we're doing and the way we're behaving and the way we're living our life for our own personal benefit at the expense of humanity. That's my first thing. So understand today, you're not going to get the full picture by any means. in recent weeks, it's like I've tried to cram everything in at once because I've been keen to help people in record time. When I've realized that from gentle prompting from the Council of Nine, who many of you know, dealing with higher level beings, have been teaching me to be under my own form of martial law with higher authority. And following the higher authorities, the senior management and angelic hierarchy that guides the planet. And in turn, that means slowing down and allowing them to dictate the plan, because they can see what's coming. They see the golden age that lies ahead on planet Earth and the wonderful times that do lie ahead through all of this. But at the same time, realizing that there's a dark night of the soul ahead. A bit like what I went through last year after injuring my back, and I had 4 absolutely, appalling months, really. It was really difficult to, the radical action that was required to get myself well and fixed and now having in perfect shape was a very difficult process. So I've written up some slides, so I'm just going to start by an immediate scripture to give you a little bit of an indication of what martial law means. And let me just show you something that those of you who come regularly would have read many times. Those of you who've not, you may or may not have heard this one before. And I always use the King James Bible just simply because, not because it's the perfect Bible. If you want a perfect Bible, you've got to go back to Dead Sea Scrolls and Hebrew Aramaic. But the best English translations that I've found, about 99.9% of Bibles now have been corrupted and are owned by various printing companies of people who've tampered with the sacred writings. So there's only really, the closest is the King James, the original King James, and the Geneva Bible is the best, but the Geneva Bible is very hard to understand. It uses very old language and things like that. So that's why I'm choosing to use what I see as a second best version that you can use. So what it says here shows something very clear, that we're living in a spiritual war or a mental war, a realm of the mind. And putting on the whole armor of God that we may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil, which, again, keep in mind, English is an imperfect translation. So devil is a form of Satan, the higher level reptilian archangel dark order. It's probably the best way to think of the word devil, okay? Dark angelic hierarchy order. And the words say, for we wrestle, which means we don't fight against human beings. In other words, it's not the government, it's not the tax office, it's not your next door neighbor who's pissing you off, it's not your mother who you hate because you think that she said nasty things to you and made you cry. It's not your not that guy who ripped you off in business and ran off with your money that you're wrestling against. They're just a vessel or conduit. But against principalities, against powers, which basically means realms, orders, and hierarchies which operate under strict law and authority, what we would label in humanity as martial law, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. So in other words, very much like you're seeing on planet Earth, in an angelic hierarchy realm, you've got these beings and higher consciousness, non-physical form bodies like angels, beings, that are leading and attempting to bring the planet back into a golden age and into a light place where all prosper, all benefit, not some particular church, not that my religion will be great and yours won't be, but basically all of humanity move into a place of prosperity, success. They're following a fairly overall agreed order and standard of values and behavior and spiritual consciousness and law and order, with certain flexibility and freedom to live slightly differently because of our unique and individual differences as people and tribes, while still following an overall common law of consciousness. And by contrast, attempting to stop that and maintain control of a planet or realm or energetic realm, the realm of the mind, against another order, authority, or realm of beings who equally operate in a military order, law, and hierarchy, that's basically attempting to keep humanity completely different fighting against each other, serving self-interests and doing all their own stuff and ruining their planet and ripping everyone off in business and basically kind of doing shitty, horrible things to each other and treating women appallingly and treating different people really badly, pretty much for their own personal gain. So that's just basically the best way to think of it. And it's very important to understand when you read any kind of Bible or sacred writing, the problem that we've had is that churches have turned this into a linear literal book rather than seeing mystery school teaching for what it is. So mystery school teaching is always done in parables and in codings for a very specific reason, as you will see in any mystery school teaching. And in history, any mystery schools that are working for the good have been done in secret. And they're actually not only are they hard to join, you've got to apply to join and usually get rejected. Pythagoras was rejected basically from his mystery school at first and had to work really hard to get them to accept him and prove his worthiness of them. Jesus' mystery school was the same. And not only was his mystery school tough, he even told his disciples, we specifically hide the teachings to stop dark forces misusing this stuff to hurt humanity. We're seeing today what happens when dark forces get control of powerful high-level technology to hurt humanity. And it's woeful. We see it in our own eyes. So you can see why, we can see with new bioenergetic warfare and the things that are starting to open up. And some of you may have heard of 5G towers, and although they could do a lot of good in giving a genuinely better speed of internet, a bit like money, if misused, they can actually be used as a form of bioenergetic warfare to activate viruses in people's systems and kill them or instantly make them ill and other stuff. So anything that can be used for good can also be used for dark. So this is why mystery schools and Bibles and anything like the sacred book of Enoch, the Dead Sea Scrolls, are really written in a very symbolic coded language where you actually have to work to understand them. And Jesus actually said specifically to his disciples, it's done this way, and I don't want a lot of these people to understand this stuff because of the damage that they will do. And it's kind of like teaching a rampant angry child how to use a gun. Very good chance they'll go straight out and shoot someone. And so this is why you've got to prove yourself worthy historically to be any kind of mystery school, any kind of teaching. And I've been slowed down today because the Council of Nine told me very few of humanity are ready for this time, Warren. They said, just because you're seeing these things, we know that you spent your whole life being a bit of a rescuer and an older son and looking to help people. And you really want to help people. But right now, people don't want to, they're not believe what's happening. They feel something's wrong, but they prefer to keep their way of life and go to their bars and go to their clubs. They have no idea of history and what's transpired. They have no idea what inevitably comes from this. You're educated, you've taken the time, but most people would much rather buy a whole lot of properties or go and, go to the doctor and get a pill because it's easier. And they still haven't really changed it. And the thing that they're really upset with in their heart right now is they can't believe they can't go to the beach whenever they feel like it and do what they want. They said, that's the truth. So they said, you're going to have to slow down because there's going to be 3 phases of how this will play out. There's been a lot that I was told over the last 2 years, and a lot of it I have not revealed yet to humanity fully. And now I've been given permission to reveal it, but it's going to take time to bring it out. And I was in shock myself because they told me some times and dates and specific things, and it has happened precisely as I was told. And even my family are in shock because they thought I was a bit crazy. Remote viewer Ed Dames specifically, for example, said in 2020 a pandemic would start, and he also talked about where it would lead to. So the whole point is that remote viewers, psychics, the Bible, prophets have all spoken about this time that's to come. And the reason I put the message on Facebook and invited a lot of people, what they said to me today was those who are meant to be here will come, because they said there are a small number of people who are ready. The ones who come today, they said to see who comes, these are people who are to some level ready. They may have no idea what to do about it, but they are willing to play their part with some instruction and some guidance, whatever that happens to be. Because I was told very clearly, you can do something about this in your country of Australia, and to a limit. And a lot will depend on how you and people behave in the coming days. So they said, it's your job to teach people what you know, slow down and submit yourself under martial law with us. In other words, I was pretty much told, and because you're a smaller group, and I'm assuming you're ready, and if you're not, you'll kind of think I'm a bit crazy, but I've been having extraterrestrial visits all week, downloading things into my third eye, Jesus visiting me, okay, and speaking to me and giving me precise things as to what's happening. And they said, those who are ready, we can help people and help them get through this time, and not only get through this time, usher in a golden age of great prosperity for all. And that's what they desire. And so it's going to be very good times that come out of this. But this is a time to have no illusions as to what's coming. No illusions at all. Any sign that things will get better will be temporary for a time. And I can tell you as we speak right now, just about anyone involved in underground movements who knew this was to come have moved into bunkers by now, and they started moving last year and even earlier, okay? So that's happening right now as we speak. So I was told very clearly there's one of two ways you can go. You can go into a bunker and hide, or you can step up and be part of social action or reform and spiritual awakening. That's your choice. And they said, understand that unfortunately, if you look at history and what's happened in times past, when disastrous events have happened, it's always the same. People haven't yet learned in thousands of years. There's always a small number who see what's coming and flee. There's a very small number who see it immediately and take some action and are able to guide humanity through it, which is in a way what we're all here to do. There's then the vast majority who then, when the next phase happens, and the next phase will be 100 times more serious than what you're seeing now, that's when a lot of people will take action. And then the third phase, it'll be too late to take action. And that's when you will see the kind of stuff, which I'm not going to be fully revealing today, that you've watched on movies, okay? So things will play out in time. Point is to have no illusions where things are at. Life does not go as normal. There will be untold opportunities financially and in every area that you cannot comprehend right now in a new world of alternative health. That's so much better. And an opportunity for all of us to change our collective consciousness and take control and stop saying dumb things like the government needs to do this, the government needs to do that, and says we will do it. Yesterday I was ringing clients who are wealthy and telling them, virtually by an order, I'm saying you cannot let people in your area run out of food. Everyone, there's no reason for this. There is abundance of food. And people will riot if they run out of food. If people will riot when they've got no toilet papers, they will riot if they can't eat and they've got kids. And they will more than riot. They'll look for people who've got food and steal from them and beat them up. So I said, you cannot, under any circumstances, let people do that. So these are some preliminary comments that I'm giving you right now, and I'm sure you all know what I mean. And the fact you're here means you're conscious, so you cannot. And every one of us has responsibility in our local area to do our part, okay? And be certain. And that also will get the attention of the higher orders and councils. And I watched with fascination when Scott Morrison announced draconian measures today, and he specifically said, each state premier can decide, because some won't necessarily need that. An example he gave was Perth, Western Australia, which we felt would be the case. And I've been saying to people, because we've been working on here spiritually on the consciousness of this for quite a while, and we've been telling people to be socially responsible, and things actually are over here are responsible. Things are quieter. People are observing social distancing over here. People are doing the right thing and following things. So the point I'm making is, even though we may know the truth, which by and large about this virus is that it's pretty much, and I'm not going to get caught up in this argument saying it's nowhere near as bad as people think. The fact you know that doesn't mean you don't have a social responsibility as citizens to behave in a way to help basically keep law and order and keep things at peace, to avoid the kind of things that otherwise come out of it, whereby everyone doing their own thing and arguing with each other results in rioting, okay? So this is something that we must be absolutely sure we take responsibility, because if we can ensure our people have food and the people in our community are taken care of, you can rest assured overall things will remain pretty safe and that won't be needed, okay? So anyway, that's just the start of things. So keep undistracted, and it'll be finished definitely by absolute latest. I have to go to another event I'm speaking at today anyway to help people out in this time in the community, a very small room, which has got a small number and meets the rules about social gatherings and indoor gatherings. I'm making sure of that, and I won't enter the room if it doesn't. So I decided to basically strictly abide the law and make sure people are doing that, because this will help the community rise up and become responsible for its own government, as we're meant to do, rather than have some centralised authority. Right now, we have a centralised authority, and we deserve one, because by and large, we don't do things correctly and don't manage our communities responsibly. So that's my first comment. So let's just make sure you've got your notes handy and everything like that, and there'll be a recording. And let's make sure that the picture you see in front of us does not apply to any one of us on this webinar, because that is certainly where we're heading without any question whatsoever, no doubt. And I think now everyone in this webinar would know that well and truly, otherwise you wouldn't be here. So I'm just going to go through, and I've got some preparation, some will evolve. I'm going to ask you as well, if you find at the end you don't understand certain parts, then by all means, put your questions in the text chat. And Grace has already knows she's got authority to step in if she needs to and kind of stop me and just explain and slow things down. And, you know, we got time to do this stuff, and things will settle in certain times. I've been given some time frames and some periods very precisely. So we have a very short time. And when I say short, you cannot imagine how short it is, but there is time for instant action immediately. Ian says they're scanning foreheads here. Really, Ian? You're in Philippines, aren't you? Can you actually elaborate to that one? Because I know it's happening in parts of Europe already, and I was going to say that, but mate, you got to fill me in. Just type in the chat and I'll keep going. I wasn't aware of that. This is where community steps in, you know. This is where I'm very, you know, this is why we do that. And we're learning to grow and evolve together as a community. Everyone has their part. This is the first thing that the book of Hosea, who was a great prophet in his sacred scroll, who warned his people at the time as to what was to come. 20 years later, the country was taken over. The women were raped, taken slaves. The men were killed or done things. Society was crashed, and they all became slaves, and their cities were burned. And what's interesting to note is every time in history this happens, the next civilization believes it was different. We're more conscious, it won't be like that this time. And if you actually map through history over 10,000 odd years, it's happened so many times, countlessly, you cannot imagine it. The Persian Empire felt that way. The Greek Empire. The city of Tyre, one of the most prosperous cities in the world that ever existed, fell that way. People got complacent, they got lazy. The Spartans took, basically with 300 people, took a place. Attila the Hun took down the Roman Empire, the whole empire. It's happened in so many places. And we really, unfortunately, people are deluded into their belief system because, especially today, to think everything's now different. So understand that, yes, stronger parties can come over, what you hear in China and things like that, and everything like that. So this is what basically happens. Ian says that checking temperature, if high, you're automatically detained and you come into contact. Yeah, look, that's what I thought. They're indoctrinating people right now. They're getting you used to that, scanning foreheads. They're getting you used to getting injected without consent. You know, they're getting you used to the idea. It's a slow indoctrination process. And those of you who know sales know that the best way to get a sale is to indoctrinate clients through lots of good teaching, slow steps, bit by bit, until you get there. Those of you know in dating, you start small, build it up until you move into sex and then into a relationship or whatever. So if they came out too radical, people would resist. So it's a slow process. So eventually, and if you think about it, 30 years ago, when Prophet Barry Smith, 32 years ago, sat there and spoke precisely of the events that would come, and I was sitting in his seminars for hours, and he explained about the chipping, and he went through about cameras coming in and going into people's cars and all that. He was labelled the biggest conspiracy theorist, as was I when I was telling people about it. As of January now, New South Wales have cameras going straight into your car, can look exactly what you're doing to see if you're on the phone. No doubt next it will be to make sure that you're not giving your child inappropriate material, or that you're not yelling at your child for child protection, or something else. The point I'm making is, as Thomas Jefferson said in the US Revolution, that if the people allow, without any resisting or pushing back, because I'm paraphrasing here, governments to take control and give laws and give banks the power to print money the way they do right now, the corporations and the banks and the governments that grow up around them will deprive the people of all their property until the children wake up homeless on the land that their fathers conquered. Jefferson knew what he was talking about. He'd seen it firsthand. This generation hasn't seen that firsthand. We're seeing signs of it now because the millennials are waking up homeless on the land that their fathers conquered. The reason that we have rights and freedoms today is, for example, the 1600s, when William Penn fearlessly taught the higher truths against the law and was brought before the court, and the jury tried to let him off and were jailed by the judge and ordered to come back and reconsider their verdicts. And the jury were being put in jail on and off until finally the public exploded, and they were forced to bring in laws to bring in guaranteed trial by jury and independence from the judges. That was how our system improved, to give some level of rights. And there's many other stories I could keep you here with. I mean, the rights and freedoms did not just evolve. This is the biggest lie that's been taught. No, they don't just evolve, they come through social reform, and most of the great social reformations actually came from churches with spiritual leaders who did what they were told to do, which was to go out and bring the kingdom of heaven, which didn't mean walking around with a silly smile, going to church and carrying on like an absolute galah, but actually pushing back, like Charles Finney, who led the Great Awakening in America, which is the greatest awakening in modern times in a Western world, where whole cities radically changed almost overnight, because he led a movement to push back against Lincoln, who was refusing to do anything about slavery. So we hear about Lincoln and what he did. We don't hear about the men who pushed him. The churches today are the worst part of the problem, teach complete and utter nonsense, and are now experiencing the first signs of their accountability. So the point I'm making here is that it's lack of knowledge and understanding of our history and thinking things will be different, and continually giving up our rights and not pushing back, and preferring to perish in our own self-interest and ignorance. So first, congratulations on being here and actually being willing to be educated and do something about this. And because I don't feel any resistance today. And honestly, I have a lot of time for people who are wanting to do something about what's going on, even if they don't know. Because I don't know a lot of stuff still, I really don't. It's why I've been running around a bit like a headless chook, because I see certain things and it distresses me, what I see and what I see happening to people that I care about. So I'm having to learn to let go. Grace is tougher than me like that. But I'm getting tougher. So just bear with me if I kind of run ahead and carry on a little bit and all that and lose you, because I'm learning too, and I'm getting pulled up now by people around me to help me slow down. I've now got Sammy helping me, because she admitted to me last night she didn't understand virtually anything I said, and she's been my partner for 2 years, and that was a wake-up call for me. So I thought, yucks, if Sammy doesn't, then I'd say most people don't understand as well as I thought. So I thought, okay, back to square one, pare this back, slow this down, and just trust and let go and let God, in a sense. So Thank you for bearing with me, those of you who've been here for a while. Just for your own interest, this is what Larry Bates, the bank president, wrote back in about the late 1990s. So I'll let you read this for yourself. So this is just a wealth transfer. There's many other things as well, but this is just a wealth transfer. And you're going to see a lot of conscious businessmen and investors make money, make such insane amounts of money in record time, they'll be standing there staring at you like a ghost hitting them. We've got a few clients in our group who just started to have that experience the last 2 weeks. And I was speaking to one yesterday, they kind of feel like they're in a surreal movie. And I'm noticing it's happening to people who are very humble, very sober, very modest, and who kind of don't have no interest in going out and buying big, like, luxury jets or cars. They just think, great, well, we can help more people. That's really good. That's what I'm noticing. It's like, great, well, you know, we can live well and be fine, but we can help more people. That's really good, you know, because we were worried about our area. And that's what's going to start happening. A lot of conscious people are going to get wealthy very, very quickly in this time. And that's the huge positive of this. So don't be phased with the meltdown. Don't be attached to your property values, because apart from certain areas, they'll tank like nothing. But at the end of the day, if you own property, property is property, for example. It's land. It's a physical asset. So I wouldn't be fussed about that. Just don't be attached to the value, because if you're in Indonesia right at one stage, your house may be worth $1 billion rupiah. I mean, whatever. Whereas if you're in Cambodia, the same house might be worth 100,000. If it was in some tiny island, it might be worth 50. It's just a figure people make up, and it kind of plays around a bit. So this is what the super wealthy do realize. So I just want to let people, first of all, let go of all attachment to values. And what's amazing, it's 11:11 right now. I'm like, wow. So we're hearing source. So I'm going to show you a few scriptures and explain these to you, just to give you a bit of an idea about this financial system. Oh, wow, it's day 11 too. Day 11 of what, Alex? Oh, yeah, 22nd of, no, I don't know what you mean, Alex. So, oh, wow, 11:1, I didn't realize that too. So we're really on point. This is about this economic system being dealt with. A false balance is abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight. And a just weight and balance are the Lord's. Now, I'll explain what that means so you don't think like, huh? You know, what language are you talking, Warren? In the times when this was written, when things were more agrarian or agricultural and people were kind of farmers and living off the land and living in a community like a village and giving people like all kinds of food, and a little bit like if you've got food and you're a good grower, you might give some of your food to the guy next door who's not so good at food, but he's really good at, say, fixing toilets and plumbing. So he does that for you. And then the other guy or the other lady there, she's really good at kind of organizing, you know, how to make up herbal medicine, like Sammy does, for example. Or you might have somebody else who's really good at kind of coming in and actually building things in the house. So what happened was some very unscrupulous people in marketplaces, they learned a bit of a trick to kind of trick people out of, because what they would do is, let's say you were going to buy a kilo of fruit and veggies or a kilo of gold or a kilo of whatever, they would kind of secretly put little weights and little, basically things under the weight to imbalance it. So it would look like a certain weight when it was something else. And it was done to deliberately wrap up the price without people realizing. Kind of like our banking system. So that's really simply what that's saying. So in other words, the higher authorities absolutely hate that with an absolute passion, you know? So very, very interesting. So same one again. This is something I learned when I was in the underground common law sovereignty movement, which helped me to regain my power, learn to respect and work with the authorities of the land, but to also realize that my ultimate authority was God or source, something that the original church knew full well. If you look at the churches who brought social reform, there was no question in their mind that while the government was doing laws in alignment with higher laws, they obeyed strictly. soon as governments passed laws that went against the higher order, they would deliberately rebel. And of course, they would pay a price initially, but they would bring reform. So this was what the original church would do. And that is why in City Awakenings Foundation, I was shown 20 years ago, I worked out why would people go to the state government, set up an incorporated church, which is registered by the government on their terms, get an ABN, a business name, and then claim to be, sovereign to the state. And I used to say to people, you can't do that, you're idiots. And of course, I got such a hard time about it that I just backed off it. And what I did was, for quite a long time, I operated our City Awakening back 20 years ago as a completely unregistered church. Under a private foundation, I learned how to set up in the underground movement, not the ones you see today, which most of them are shit and have been, I think, deliberate traps to get people pricked. But one that I designed using higher laws, which I'd been taught by people who knew. And I was actually called at one stage by the government about it, and I had to register. And I just told them, no, I just said I'm not going to do that. Of course I won't. And they're a bit surprised, and that was it. And I didn't register it. But then as time went on, I got a sense that I had an idea. And I actually did I created a trust deed, a charitable trust where Grace and myself were the trustees. And what we did was we put a special clause in there, which I drafted, which pretty much said that we will submit to all state government laws provided they align with the common law and higher law and with the Holy Scriptures. I said, if the government passes laws that contravene these, we're no longer bound by them anymore. Now, will the tax office and the authorities approve it? And they did. So, and I smiled. So now, as of this point, our church has been set up as the original churches used to set up, which is to say, yes, we will work within the laws while they're honouring the laws. And up until now, our church has never had a problem or spiritual movement because governments have actually in this area been playing ball. They've given tax exemption, they've left us alone, and it's got the least regulation of anything in the world. So the point is, our real authority is to God or source. That doesn't mean we become reckless in our responsibility either. But it means we're governed in our law by the higher law, which is life, liberty, property, which is simple things like, I don't go and steal your stuff from you. I don't go and cheat with your wife on you. I don't kidnap you and do things to you I shouldn't. We help you. I don't get food and get rich and then hoard up toilet paper and leave you out because you're elderly and think tough luck. I do the right things because, I want to make sure that everyone can share in the bounty, in the abundance that we've been blessed in. So we're very aware of that stuff. And I've been very wise in terms of that stuff. I've even walked into shops and seen opportunities to buy up a whole lot of stuff, and I've just chosen to buy what I normally buy. And think, I've got a social responsibility here. So that's basically governing yourself by higher law. That's true sovereignty, everyone. True sovereignty is where you govern and do what's right because you're obeying a higher authority, which is basically senior management, which is the angelic hierarchy order, the councils that operate over things, the various principality realms that are working within the realm of the Father's kingdom. So, and basically operating, knowing that we are basically gods and higher ascended beings in our own rights. And that's why we're here to bring, as Jesus said, the light to the world. He didn't say go and start some big church and put up this big building and then go and pay for his renovations and go and carry on like nitwits and then go and buy jets and say, oh, hasn't God blessed us? He actually said that's a sign of a false church. That's a sign of people who are basically just getting caught up in what everyone else is doing. And it's to be responsible, be modest. And I know a number of you here are wealthy and you're very modest people. You'd never guess it. A couple of you caught me out. I had no idea that you were actually prosperous people. I just thought you were kind of normal people and that kind of stuff. So that's true prosperity to me. It's restraint and using what you got for the higher good while still ensuring that first and foremost that you love your neighbor as yourself, which means first making sure you're well provided for in your family, and then with the surplus, making sure that your neighbor which, by the way, is if you actually read the Holy Bible and the Law of Moses, that's what it's actually saying. People kind of, because they don't understand the coding and the sacred keys that you've got to unlock to understand the scriptures properly and the Dead Sea Scrolls, they just read things and say, oh, it's giving you all this stuff and giving you all this stuff and it's all that. But actually the whole book is a book and teaching of social responsibility and ensuring that you will prosper, but then you will share your prosperity with the rest of the community so no one will miss out. And I mean no one. Yeah, Ian, bingo, yeah. Like Ian in Philippines, and I guarantee you, he would be socially conscious, and I'm sure he would deep down already be thinking of the people in Philippines and knowing what they're going through and thinking, yikes, we're okay, but there's people in Philippines, and Ian would know this, who, if they can't drive their taxi and they're getting stopped, they can't feed their family because it's a much worse world than over here in the West. So Ian would see that. And I think deep down, he would be feeling for the people. So that's the kind of thing. And then you start to think, let's do something about this stuff. If I cry today, just have to bear with me because I've been crying a lot lately. And I just feel tears now as I'm saying this because I really don't like to think of this kind of things. That's why I spent my whole life running for things, but denying it's happening is not going to help people and not going to change this problem. It's feeling the pain and then doing something about it in your community, being a leader. I'm still pondering it, but I'm seriously pondering, just making sure I'm not running ahead of myself, but I'm just waiting on the councils about whether to go and see the local council, thinking is there some way, I don't know if it's a time yet, but I feel now or at some stage to go see the local councils and see if there's some way we can provide a program to give some education to small business in the area and help them to keep their business solvent, for example, to keep our area stable without running around looking for government stimulus packages. Like, I know that's the path, I'm just pondering the timing, so I'm sitting on that. But for example, just to really ponder, at the very least right now, food, making sure that that basic is covered. Here's some scriptures I've been giving my family and team for a while where they thought I was a little bit over the top and the doomsday guy, but I was given this. And many of you know, but 2 years ago, my life got changed when I've had spiritual experiences over the years, but I'd kind of lost heart a bit, lost the idea of what was happening. I could see what was coming. I was certain humanity wouldn't listen. And I just was like, I just want to be out of here. And deep down, there was a desire to die. Because I want to be out of here. I don't want to be here because people, I can't see anything changing. I don't feel equipped. I'm kind of mucking up myself and not doing a particularly good job because I'm just running around doing tax work. And, who gives a shit really if people pay less tax or not in the big scheme of things, unless it's helping humanity. That was where I was at. And I had an experience with the Council of Nine who oversee this galaxy, spoken about in the Keys of Enoch and various other mystery school teaching, which then led to a number of experiences in many days and basically high level dimensional heavens and being shown things and being taught how to, clear mind control and other stuff that was going on in myself for a higher work. And then since that time, life's been challenging, working out exactly how I deliver it to people, which is why I've been given permission to share fully and freely. So just to let people just very slowly, just like I had to walk through stuff, and I can move quicker than most. This is one thing I was given. And keep in mind, the Lord your God is a code. It's actually the tetragrammaton, Yahweh. It's not like some guy in the sky staring at you. It's like, think of this more as a higher council, a higher angelic order, and ultimately the senior management oversees all this stuff, okay? Who then works through various councils and angelic orders. So just to help you unlock that in your mind, so you're not thinking in terms of some guy in the sky who's sitting there staring at you, angry with a big stick or, whatever he's got. So give glory, which basically means honor, gives, martial law submission or higher honor and acknowledgement to the higher councils of beings or higher levels before he causes darkness. And again, just keep in mind that King James is not perfect. If you are able to read the original Hebrew, and if we could, and I've gone through and I've interpreted the Hebrew with a lot of hard work on some parts, and it's pretty consistent. So again, more, like I said, to think of multiple, because the multi-dimensional realm is not like our linear realm. There's no time in that realm. It's all kind of one.
we're in a much lower consciousness, which I'm sure you would understand, where things happen slower, people are less conscious, much lower vibration. So it's a more multi-dimensional. When we talk about the Lord your God, it's like a council of beings, various energies, things like that. And yeah, Ian Ross says 10 days of darkness coming in the US. Yeah, look, I've been telling people recently, you got to expect electricity grids to shut off in certain places. So I'm, you know, I've been told that you're okay here for the time being. So yeah, but we're looking at other alternative backup sources of power and things like that. So yeah, look, it's wise thinking here, because yeah, if you just study any kind of martial law takeover, you just got to kind of get people used to this stuff and get them to fright and the shock. And if you actually study mind control studies and how they do it in the CIA and everything, yeah, it's a fairly standard thing to kind of gradually, slowly introduce shocks and deprivation of various things. And then people, because we have a reptilian brain, which David Icke actually, Sammy was showing me his recent video that came out, the reptilian brain activates, which is about fight and flight survival. And you quickly move into compliance and obedience. People subconsciously start crying out for leadership and strict law and direction. So if no one's stepping up in the church or around you, they quickly run straight to the first person who's doing it, which right now is the world leaders, Donald Trump, Scott Morrison, Jacinta Ardern, who, by the way, just decided that while everyone's with the coronavirus, secretly rushed through a bill for selective abortion, so you can kill a child anytime you want to, right up until when it's born, just because you don't like the sex or whatever else you don't like. So they start pushing through unpopular laws and things like that really quickly, just to basically get them in, because everyone's focused on other stuff. A bit like they pushed through the Biosecurity Act in Australia secretly, which is now what they've activated, that gives the health authorities power to quarantine and basically do other actions with people. So while people are deprived, in shock, seeing shortages ahead, the reptilian brain switches on. They just do what they're told. They go running to the strongest voice, do what they're listening to. This is why I'm telling you to step up in your community, because if you're a strong voice, people will listen to you, because people would rather a strong voice which proclaims what's to do the right thing than someone kind of just saying turn to the government. It won't make you popular. I'm not promising you that. I'm sure I've pissed off some of my family. One of my family was writing a post on Facebook, that was actually going on about the government should do more about stimulus packages and close the schools. And I actually wrote on the post, grow up. This stupid posts are the reasons why we got this problem. If you feel the school should be shut, you and parents get together, refuse to take your kids to school, and just don't do it. If you feel that's right, push your school to close it down. If you feel that's right. And I said this, and don't go to the government for a stimulus package. They'll have to steal from you anyway, print it out of nothing, and then basically give it to the airlines anyway. So I said, capitalists, you step up, you put your money together, you rally together, you set up a benevolent fund within the community. You get there and join together with other people and just do whatever you can, even if it's a tiny thing, even if it's just finding a few friends and you find your local neighbors and just think, okay, you guys okay. Just something, how small. Now, it's not I'm learning still, everyone. So I know that when I say these things, a lot of you are saying, give me strong direction and all that. And this is where I'm still learning at the moment to kind of do this stuff and realizing people need very specific direction. So for now, the specific direction and the best I can give you, and maybe towards the end of the webinar, Grace or Christine or someone like that who are better than this than me might get up and give a better, more practical direction than I'm giving you right now. And I will open this up for others to step up and talk and do that, because there are people like Christine and Natasha and various others and Grace who will be better than this than me. All I can tell you is that the problem is that we become the strong voice and not that Scott Morrison doing a live stream, which everyone runs to, because that's what's going to bring in the new world order, where whoever this world leader Antichrist is who brings in this right hand will be going onto a live stream. The whole world will listen and obey strictly. So that's why I'm saying you want to become the voice in your local community in some way, shape or form. And this is where this has got to play out. This is early days yet, okay? Very early days. It's going to take time to unfold.
It's going to require various people here to step up with their various skill sets. I'm good at inspiring people. I know that. I'm good at getting people to take action. I'm good at waking people up, shocking the shit out of them, being a strong voice without fear, and going head to head on an issue. I'm not so good at what to do next. Okay, I'm very weak at that area. So I'm grateful we've got Grace and others here. So at the end of the webinar, I'll allow others to step up and give some more guidance, because like I said, I'm really just, that's where I fall down, and I'll acknowledge I really don't know what to do, other than just say I can see the problem. And the first priority is somehow just to make sure that your community is getting food and making sure basic needs are going to get met. That's it. So somehow it's got to be solved in some way, shape or form. So when you read the rest of the scripture, your feet stumble upon the dark mountains, and while you look for light, he turns it into the shadow of death. In other words, if you don't actually look, and if you deny what's happening and continue to put self-interest and go into denial, it'll become the shadow of death, and it'll become greater darkness. But if you'll not hear it, my soul shall weep in secret places for your ego, entitlement, and pride. I think we all saw that with what happened at Bondi Beach a couple of days ago. I just sat there, my heart grieved. I thought, you fucking morons, seriously. Within 24 hours, they're going to step up and increase the measures because you egotistical, entitled idiots are doing this kind of behavior. And sure enough, it's what's happened. So this is where correct social responsibility, without judging people and teaching people with a wake-up call, is important. For behold, the darkness shall cover the earth, and deep darkness the people. But the Lord shall arise upon you. There's a clear separation, and his glory shall shine on you. In other words, Yahweh, I've seen that glory or higher light shine. I've had that light shine in the room. It's shone over me. I saw it shine over the whole beach in Rockingham years ago, a small group of people, like a white mist, that everyone was like, what? Because we did some work to break things over that area. So the darkness shall cover the earth. In other words, it's covering the minds of the people. It's a realm of the mind. That's why they're getting everyone locked down into the realm of the internet, because this battle is moving into the realm of the mind out of the physical. And that's where it's going to be won, is in the consciousness, as well as stepping up in their physical and the social responsibility department. So the Lord shall arise upon you, and his glory shall shine upon you. That's why it says in Psalm 23, which is a very well-known passage by most people, that even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you are with me and you comfort me. In other words, when we're doing what's right and we're shining in a higher vibration in our purpose and prospering for ourselves, but also making sure there's prosperity for all, then the light increases in us. We start to shine more. People in the community who at first might not like you, they start to gradually admit that what you're doing is the right thing. And many people who previously behaved unethically in business start to behave themselves better. People who previously were using very shonky sales tactics start to kind of realize very quickly that you're getting all the business because people can trust your business because you're honest and you do what's right and don't use shonky sales tactics. And very quickly they start to pull themselves in a line as well. And you'll see that happening. And this is what it says. You've all heard this one. But let's actually read what it's saying. The very first verse. And he calls all. And let's be clear, all who are in that system. So there is a way out. That's why I said this is going to take time to unfold. This could be like a 100-hour teaching. So the day it's just starting the ball rolling, then I'll stop, hand over to Grace, Christine and others, and then let them kind of go through and help people understand the next stage, whatever. But in other words, anyone who's still in that system and trading in that self-interest commercial system where money commercial comes first and still looking to the government under a socialistic order and things outside yourself and not taking social responsibility, whether you're small and great, whether you're a celebrity, whether you're a singer, whether you're an Instagram, girl who's running around wearing sexy clothing and looking beautiful on the beach and selling travel products with a big smile, whether you're
a world leader, you know, whether you're basically the richest guy who's driving around in a big jet and all that kind of stuff, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. In their right hand or in their foreheads. If you go back, this is the thing, we've actually had prophets and people who have basically paved the way, as we always do in societies. We do get warnings. That's one thing about the higher councils, they always give opportunity to avoid outcomes. Not just Nostradamus, Edgar Cayce, all told about this time to come, Charles Finney with the Great Awakening, David Wilkerson in 1973, a great, great pastor of a church in New York, will set the trumpet to your mouth. He wrote a book, and he talked about what he called Judgment Day, or Day of the Lord, and he spoke about the things that were to come, and it's been happening bit by bit in every way. How New York, he particularly said, is going to be judged, come on a lockdown. He said all kinds of stuff, martial law, you know. So they were warned by a really true prophet, David Wilkerson, in 1973. Fantastic pastor, one of my, you know, a very admired man for me. 1988, Barry Smith, another great prophet, came and taught all over the world, taught in Perth and learned all this stuff. In 1988, he knew, because people would come to him and give him inside info. He would name names. He told us who would be next US president. He's exactly right. He went through all this stuff. He gave us precise details of what would unfold. And it's all happened as he foretold. The move away from cash, the cameras. He wrote books, which you can find him online, First Warning, Second Warning. So Barry Smith. But he specifically said in 1988, they already have a technology and they've already worked out, but the best place to put the chip for best results is the right hand or forehead. The right hand better than the left hand. So Ian Ross went to Barry Smith seminars. Yeah, weren't they amazing? You know, a true prophet. I mean, Ian would know. I mean, I used to find church boring, even though, unless the power of the Holy Spirit was pouring out, and I was having supernatural experiences, but I thought most of the preachers were idiots. But Barry Smith preached for 2 hours and I didn't want to leave the room. I was so sad when he'd stop. And my aunt and my uncle knew him and went on a tour with him, and, you know, basically spent 3 months with him. And they said to me, you know, almost one of them, they knew David Wilkerson personally. They spent time with him and said, oh, the greatest men, you know, people we've ever met. And my uncle, who literally caused distress and anger in every church he went into and used to upset them, because my uncle was a badass, he used to just speak his mind and walk in and tell pastors they were idiots if he didn't like what they were doing, and pretty much try and take control of the board to sort them out. You know, he was a real badass, my uncle. But there's about 3 men he just listened to like martial law. They spoke to him, David Wilkerson, Barry Smith, and there was a guy in Perth, Pastor Will Pope. You know, the only 3 people that he would listen to. And so, and he just said, these guys spoke truth, is what he would always say to us, say to me. Notice the next words, but no man might buy or sell, save he had that mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. So to understand this sacred coding here, this is the part I'm not going to go into too much today because it will take time. The best way to think of that is the name is like a sacred coding. In mystery schools, they talk a lot about names and sacred names and codings, okay? So there's certain codings, sacred geometry that many of you know, specific numerology sequences that do certain things. And 9/11 was chosen specifically for the numbers as well as anything else. So there is a special code here, which I will admit, I've got some, I've been shown some things about it and some is still unraveling. Somehow the only thing I do know is 6 is the number of physical on the earth. So there's a 666. So something is to do with matter, material, getting people attached to the earth. But the main thing is for you to get today is that everyone who's not basically in a new higher conscious system, in their thinking, in the realm of the mind and everything, will basically take this mark. And years ago, most people would say they'll never get cameras in when I'm around, and now we've got cameras. I remember people would say they'll never get rid of cash, and they are. Even now, it's so clever, many shops are refusing cash because of the spread of the virus. So soon shops won't need to ban cash. People just won't accept it. This is where Australia is very clever. They don't really stop you from doing anything. because they tend to think people are stupid. And by and large, they are right. We're a convict nation. People do what they're told. And by and large, Australians are not the smartest people on the block when it comes to these things. We're smart in other areas, but Australians just kind of meekly do what they're told and just whinge behind the scenes. And so you don't have to bring in compulsory vaccination. The vast majority will be begging for it unless we change the consciousness and start to re-educate people and show them a new, higher vibrational way of being. So we don't need to do it. That's why I said I said I'll be highly surprised if I make it compulsory in Australia. They don't make things compulsory here. They just set up choices. Like, if you don't want to register your church, that's fine, but you can't get tax exemption. If you don't want to get a financial services license, that's fine, but you can't do this. So everything's more like that in Australia. So it's clever. So, I mean, Ian's already said that, but this is old stuff I just copied this morning from a slide I did, because I actually did a seminar on this 18 months ago, much more detailed, and I was actually going back over it today and reading in astonishment, because I pretty much, if anyone ever wants to watch the recording, they can ask me, but I was going through in detail the scriptures and teaching about what they're going to do, and I thought, shit, I actually was right more than I thought I was at the time. So I knew I was right, but after that I started to think maybe I am getting too extreme. Anyway, just notice what it's saying here, that people already are getting used to it. Now, if you think about it, it's not really that hard to convince people, because people now are terrified and they're afraid of kids getting kidnapped. So the idea of a dog getting microchipped, now people don't have a problem as a whole, because they think, well, there, if my pet goes missing, I can find them. It won't be hard to convince people that, you know, microchipping their child will be good, because if you microchip the child, then you can make sure that you can track the child, and if you lose them or they go missing, you can just use a beeper on your smartphone and you'll find them. You can use an app like you do Uber, or like you use anything. So people have been voluntarily conditioned now with Uber apps and everything else to using an app, satellite maps. So then of course they can find their child very easily and kidnapping will end. So you can see how it'll be not that hard when they're ready to convince a lot of people to microchip children. And as time goes on, a lot of people will do this voluntarily without even questioning. Certain parts of the world, it will be completely compulsory. And that's why it's important to realize who the Bible was written for, okay? This is where a lot of people, this is what I learned in the underground movement in the mystery schools. And I'm going to give you an example to try and help you here, okay? Let's just say that you decide to write a book on Australian history or American history, okay? And that's all you're going to do. You're not writing on world history, you're writing on American history or Australian history, okay? Now, all you write about in the Australian history is about Australia. So you start to write about it, you write about your life experience, you start to write about what you saw, you write about what you've seen, and you'll only really mention other countries to the extent it's relevant to Australia. Like you might say, you know, back in the 1900s, you know, back in the 1700s, England turned up and some people came from the land of England, and when they arrived in Australia, they settled here. Then there was a problem in, say, 1870 because America did this. And then in the 1930s, Australia entered into a new agreement with Europe. And then by this year, private imports started coming in from Europe. And then Asia started doing this. So the point is, although other countries and groups are named, the real book's about Australian history. So you've always got to ask, who was the Bible and sacred writings written for? And it wasn't written for humanity. First and foremost, understand that, as hard as it may be for some to believe, it wasn't. They were written in mystery school codings for those who basically a higher vibrational consciousness to teach from the higher teachings when it was, and for them to learn this stuff and be able to use it to help humanity, and done in code to make sure people work for it. Now think of it this way. It's like if those of you run a business, okay, do you want every single client, no matter who comes? Of course you don't. You will set up a system or funnel or some kind of system to filter out who comes in. So for example, at the Awakening Within, we do filter this out. We don't accept everyone, because someone might turn up and have all the wrong ideas. They might be unaligned with what we're doing. They might actually be a problem client. You know, we've had people turn up and I've realized very quickly would be a major problem client
And we find that out in the filtering process, so we get rid of them quickly, or we have to quickly whip them in the line. The point is we have a system to make people earn their right to be clients of us and work with us and get financial help, especially now. I do not wish to help someone financially who I in any way perceive as unethical or unconscious. So that's a good example. So we have rules and systems and funnels to, as well as to basically maximize, to make sure we get the best return and profit for what we do, and as well as to make sure that we help in the highest way. I'd rather help a smaller number of people to get spectacular results who are really willing to do their hard work, be relatively low maintenance clients, and use the money for good than trying to help millions of people all from my thing, where many of them won't listen to me anyway. They'll whinge and complain and carry on and be always pestering me. That's why in investment opportunities we do, I'm very strict who I let in, because I'm not interested. Warren Buffett was very strict in his funds. If someone ever complained once in the early days in his private investment, he would instantly send them back the money, no questions asked. They'd be in shock. And he ended up creating like about 20 millionaires, I think, in about 3 years from when he started, which was a lot of money back then. He was very strict because he wanted to make sure he had good quality investors, clients and people who are willing to do certain things, okay? So the point is that we're certainly like that. We've got some clients making some extraordinary amounts of money right now, and it's going to get bigger. But, you know, I let those clients to do this because I knew they were responsible. I knew they'd earned it. They'd invested heavily in our business and what we do. They believe in us, taken a big step of faith. So we've gone over the top to give them more and more and more and more. And in fact, I'd rather get these guys and a few others spectacularly wealthy, because I know these guys will kind of be very kind of humbled and a bit kind of, shit, what do we do with it all? And then they'll need help and we'll all have to help. You know, that's the kind of clients we want. So if you think of it from the higher conscious beings who govern this planet, do you really think they want a bunch of nitwits who run around looking after themselves, making sure they get toilet paper first, you know, basically making sure that if their elderly neighbour misses out, that's okay because they're old and they're going to die anyway, who basically has no problems with animals being mistreated because, oh, that's just life, they're going to die anyway and be eaten. You really think they're the kind of people they want in the higher realms? I think not. Raymond Grace once said certain people deserve to die, you know? So the point is, what I'm saying is that what we're doing here is that the Bible is here, to any mystery school writings are really just here to basically help bring order and really make sure that high consciousness is available, okay, to all people and everyone. So, yeah, the point is in those, so let's just ask, will everyone be affected now? So there are going to be people, and 144 is a sacred number, okay? So in other words, there's people who are conscious, who have done the right thing, and there's various other passages and sacred writings that have shown, and you'll see throughout history when things happen, there's always people who are taken care of. And not just taken care of, marvelously taken care of. Marvelously. And when you think about it, the higher councils just want a lovely number of people who are really here to do the right thing by each other and prosper. We have a beautiful group of people right now in the awakening within. So, in City Awakening, we really do. And just then Grace corrected me. She said, come back to your heart. She said it privately, but I want to acknowledge it publicly because, you know, I was getting a little bit carried away. So she calmed me down a bit, as you would have heard. See, so this is the beauty of community. We're all humble. We're all here to learn. And I tend to be a bit of a military commander because of my past life experiences and things I've been shown about things I've done and who I've been. So naturally, that's something for me. I've got to be measured and helped by others, especially the women in the group, because women are naturally feel more of the heart and desire to help the heart and soul of the planet. Whereas the men, in our true form, are meant to take action. Men are not had to sit here and kind of, you know, lie there watching, you know, sitting on our asses and doing things. We really are the doers. So, yeah, so the beautiful thing is our people who will be perfectly sealed And you're going to see some beautiful activations now that will show you that. So let me just now move and show you a few more. There's some beautiful ones here that you will see that are very clear. There's a sacred sanctuary, okay? And keep in mind, this is all coding. So if the language doesn't make full sense, I'll explain to you the best I can, because like I said, this is a sacred coding and showing you some higher truth. Keep in mind, there has actually been, for example, golden ages in the history of planet Earth, where the Earth was highly conscious. There's thousands of years ago, you will find examples. And in those times, it was like a realm of glory or light, higher vibrational consciousness that people were living in prosperity. So there has actually been times in history. So what it says here, and it's beautiful language. The best thing to go down here is what these three, I'm not going to read these three for now, but very simple terms. Verse 3 is saying that Zion is like a sacred city. It's a higher ascended city or realm. When you read the book of Enoch and the Enoch writings, who was a man who basically never saw death when you read history. And in the golden age, Enoch led the planet into a golden age for a period of time when you study history, and then departed from humanity in a whirlwind. And there's many writings. It's quite an amazing story, account, because Enoch, when you study history back for thousands of years, Enoch's writings were revered more than any other writings on the planet, because he actually wrote a set of instructions to humanity for 30 days before he basically ascended in front of a whole lot of people in basically a whirlwind without seeing death. And so when Enoch ascended, he left a series of instructions for planet Earth. So all throughout the Bible, the book of Enoch is referred to. So much of what you see in many of the scriptures, they actually quote the book of Enoch. And what happened was even the early church revered the book of Enoch. And many have said to me, why isn't it in the Bible? It was kind of like, and this is a whole different teaching, but the short answer is for now, and I know it's got to be elaborated, but the Bible is just a collection of sacred writings that was put together by people to basically give humanity the best of what they saw of the instructions available at the time. But there's many other instructions as well that were revered other than the Bible that were important, which is made very clear in the Enoch writings. So the book of Enoch was just assumed to be a sacred writing in its own right. So what happened though was around about 320 AD, the book of Enoch basically and many other books were burnt. And some of you may have known that much of the history and sacred writings got burnt. But what happened was people hid the writings in the Dead Sea in an underground cavern. And for around about 1600 years, the writings remained concealed. And they were uncovered by someone in around the 1940s, hidden under the Dead Sea, called the Dead Sea Scrolls. And the Dead Sea Scrolls were a mixture of various sacred writings, including definite confirmation about the accuracy of the Bible, because many of them confirmed it. There was a whole lot of other books ranging from the War of the Dead Sea Scrolls right through to the War of the Sons of Light and Darkness, which was specifically written for this last time before planet Earth's ascension to the Golden Age. And there was also the Book of Enoch. The missing books were found. And what's amazing is the way the books of Enoch starts is to say that the writings were specifically mainly for the generation that would exist at the time of the end before the Earth moved into the new Golden Age. He actually says that specifically. So it's quite fascinating when you realize that and think about that. So Enoch was basically the one who built this ascended city called Zion, and that's all I'll say for now. And what this is really saying is that all those who are part of the new ascended city, the new ascension, those who are really conscious and part of a new thing like that, it said, holy just means to be separate. In other words, quarantined or isolated, kept away from those who are lower vibrations. Why many prophets and holy men end up living in mountains in India, to keep their vibrations clean. That's why Jesus said to people who are his disciples, you're called to be in the world, but don't be of them. In other words, get out there and show your light and help humanity, but for goodness sake, don't become one of them. That's what they were told to do. Because if you do, you'll pay a terrible price. And that's what's really happened to humanity. Jesus has basically said, he didn't say go out and start a church and be like everyone else. He said, really be separate, be isolated, be in that high conscious energy, high ethics, unbreakable standards, following the higher truths. Go out and show your light, show that high vibration, teach the world, help the world lift its vibration, but for goodness sake, please don't become like these guys. I mean, you don't want to suddenly become a business swindler or somebody who then treats women really badly or starts to be a racist or whatever, you know. So the main point I took you here is that it says the Lord or the higher council, and the best way to think of dwelling places of Mount Zion and the assemblies is really those who are the ones I showed you previously, about people who are sealed or protected or of the higher vibrational energy. So in other words, it's talking about a place of protection. And it says here there shall be a tabernacle for a shadow. And when it says a covert from a storm, in other words, that means like a big tent. So imagine there's a storm and you've got a big tent over your house so the storm can't hit you. So a tabernacle was like a huge big tent. So in fact, let's just see if we can find what is a tabernacle. Let's just see if we can see it in Google Images, just to help people see what we mean. So yeah, it's like a covering, it's like a sacred place. It's somewhere like a safe place. That's a very old tabernacle in Wikipedia. See, it's like an outdoor covering, like a tent. It's something that's a strong material. There's a tabernacle there. This was an old tabernacle. That's an example. Covert, and then I'll show you a covert. What does it mean by covert? So covert means like a covering, like a sheet of, in other words, canopy. So yeah, like you can see a canopy, like a covering. In fact, in the Daintree rainforest right now, there's actually a canopy. The reason why it's so beautiful and pure is there is actually a canopy over the Daintree rainforest. It's actually like rain, like an energetic light canopy. And they were teaching us at Daintree rainforest, the guys. And in another time, you'll learn about the science before the Great Flood, thousands and thousands of years ago. There actually was a canopy over the whole planet, which meant people were living till nearly 800, 900 years old, things like that. So that was in the golden age before basically what we're experiencing now. So the point is, despite many previous times where Earth has gone through golden ages and floods, we haven't really learnt. And for those of you who saw The Matrix, you may remember the second Matrix movie where where Neo meets the guy who founded the Matrix, and he pretty much says very like calmly, he said, well, you guys have been around all this cycle 6 times, so we know what will happen. And Neo says, you mean this happened 6 times before? He goes, yeah, about that. And whoever wrote that movie was pretty evolved, because Earth has been through these cycles, you know, a lot of times. And I found somewhere like 5 to 6 times, it seems, from what I've been researching. So the point is, life goes on, history happens, things happen, people do things. Every time we think it's different, and then the same things happen again, the new generation then comes up and goes, what went wrong? So you can see here this time round, we have I do believe this time round, a slightly more unique situation in that what's been happening, I feel there's a lot of conscious people who are around planet Earth who are ready to do something. And I do feel that we can take the vibration of the planet to a whole new level, and learning to work together and not basically the way we've done before, and then finding a way to sustain it. I don't know anywhere near the answers yet, but I do feel we're at least on track. So hopefully that will explain to you. So when it says a canopy, because the word covert means canopy, okay? And in the very old translations of the Geneva, that's the word that was used, like a canopy or covering, okay? So the point is that there's like an energetic covering or something where you can't be touched. And I know I've had that over all my life. It's like no one can touch me. I've been places that are danger, and it's like no one could touch me. They could mentally bully me, but physically it's like they couldn't touch me. And that's really been my life. And I've been in places and that are dangerous, and I just go, Grace used to understand. She goes, how can you walk at night in the dark through dangerous lanes? I just would say, well, doesn't Psalm 23 say he will keep me if I walk through the valley of the shadow of death? So I know that. Now, I don't go around teaching irresponsibility, and sometimes I choose to be wise just to help others and lead by example so they don't end up doing something stupid. And because we still need to be wise, like right now we're being a little bit wise and not going into certain very congested city areas due to social distancing. And until this food thing is definitely sorted in my mind, the small potential of riots still, even though Perth is a relatively small city who's behaving well. So nevertheless, just until I'm certain that we're doing the right thing in the city, we're just being a little bit wise without fear. So again, that's calling not for the government to fix this, but saying, why don't we fix this? Why don't we actually make sure that this thing is sorted correctly and do our part to do things? And as an example, I'm honestly considering, I mean, I can't do this but myself all on my own, but I thought, gosh, it'd be great if just a number of awakened people in our area, and we spoke to our councils, we went up and just put some signs on each beach saying, you're welcome to come to the beach still, but please do the right thing and observe social distance rules, and not from the council, but put up by the people of the community. Let's show the example in our community. Let's just go on the beach, make sure we stay apart for now until things settle, and leave in an orderly fashion. You know, that's what I'd love to see happen. Just as an example, just to lead some example, and just for now, because things only happen for a time. So that's Isaiah 4. So the point is, there's a really great hope. And as I'm finishing off before I hand to Grace to let her and the others speak, let me just show you a couple of others as well. So I mentioned about this sanctuary. And again, just understand this coding. And many people have done this right now. For those of you who don't know what a remote viewer is, a remote viewer is something I've learned to do, where in the 1970s, the military taught people how to view futures and basically view the future and view current events in a psychic way. And they discovered a series of protocols to move into higher consciousness and be able to read energy of financial markets, read energy of a city, and accurately identify exact parameters of a target or like a site. So for example, there might be a nuclear shelter. They were concerned that Iraq had built one and they could remote view and find out. So although this experiment ended, many of the original 12 military remote viewers basically continued doing it and teaching people in classes. Now, most of the remote viewers have been seeing the same thing. And that's what they saw: a pandemic, they saw martial law, they saw concentration camps, they saw huge graves in cities where bodies are being thrown en masse because there's no time to bury them, which, by the way, Italy, just there's a picture. Italy right now built a mass grave and threw people and put lime on it. Now, Ed Dames and various other remote viewers all predicted this and were all labelled fruitcakes. Gerald O'Donnell, there's a number of world-class remote viewers whose classes that have done. So remote viewers who did classes, they've all predicted it. So Ed Dames right now has actually written a book which is called Kill Shot 2020, which I'll be honest with you, I read it and I thought, yeah, he's right, but I thought he's just perhaps a little bit extreme. On Coast to Coast Radio, he got up and said this in 2004 would come and was ridiculed, and he's pretty much been written off in the US because of it. I kind of got not as bad as him, but I was doing seminars in the Hyatt Hotel in Perth in 2006 and 7 and saying similar kind of stuff. And I think some people were listening, some were thinking a little bit like, okay. And then I kind of faded into the background. Yeah, Adam and Naomi says it's very humbling. Yeah, look, this is a leveling, Adam, you know, and Naomi, it's like, I'm the same, you know, it's kind of killed any little vestige of ego in me. It's humbling. And the quicker we kind of have no sense of entitlement in any way, shape and form. Right now, I was telling people, I have staff in Philippines on the ground, Adam, and it's like, you know, Ian would know what I'm saying, and they were telling me what life is like for them. And I was like, wow, like they can only go to the market one at a time, from the family with an ID. It's strictly enforced, and people who try and drive their car on the roads against the rules, even to do work, get stopped and impounded if they keep going. And many of them, this means they won't eat. So Australia, we are a very fortunate society. New York is now in full-on martial law lockdown as of now, if you've been following the news, and California is very close. They've locked down now, and martial law's, you know, inevitable. So Ed Dames, by the way, said this last year, and he fled into a sanctuary right now. He's living right now. Ed Dames is doing things from a sanctuary right now in a bunker, which was built years ago, ready for this time. And he's precisely predicted it. So just understand that this is not a time to be anything other than very sober and be serious and take our responsibility as leaders of our communities. You know, because we are blessed. The fact is, I'm sure everyone in this webinar right now can eat. I'm sure that everyone in this webinar, and if you live in Australia right now, no matter whether you've got any money at all, someone will make sure you've got a home to be in. Someone will. There's people more than ever. You'll get to eat. You'll get to have a home. I've actually gone as far as, and I've really been private on this, but I've actually gone as far as for a long time training myself to eat light, comfortable with fasting, learning to eat less and less. In the event of things happening, because in 2006, and this is when I got a little bit I felt people felt I was weird and backed off. I actually explained there was food shortages coming. Number one, because of Revelation and what the scroll of Revelation says. Secondly, I was talking to farmers and I said to them, so my understanding is all this prosperity, all the farmers who are getting screwed by the banks and government are leaving the land, selling up, and they're all racing off to the mines for FIFO to make big money. I said, doesn't it mean we'll have food shortages at this rate? And they said, well, yeah, basically. So I said, okay. So fortunately, farmers are getting back to the land in Australia and in the West where we are, but fresh fruit and veggies are going to be fine. You know, but yeah, Ian says, I have 4 families, including mine, living since lockdown. You see, that's exactly it. I mean, you're going to have people doing that. They might have a family member who's lost their job and say, look, it's fine. And the thing is, for me, I think where I'm fortunate is that we've had times without any money at all. And I mean, none. Absolutely zilch. Like, Grace can tell you now, you know, from 2001 to 2003, we had incredible blessings from investments because we were led by supernatural occurrences into a time of prosperity. And at the time, that was our training. We wasted it. We used the prosperity, the obscene prosperity we were getting, to squander it and just do all kinds of behavior. And then, fortunately, the Father allowed consequences and everything went wrong and we lost investments all over the place like a miracle. In the same way it was a financial miracle to get wealthy, it's like we had a financial miracle to lose everything. And so before I knew it, we had absolutely zero money and we're living day to day. And this went on for quite a while. And of course, Grace was slightly stronger than me, but we were still fine because I was fortunate in that I trained myself in this stuff from when I was young and knew what was coming. And Grace kept saying to me, well, this is part of our training, Warren. You know, we're learning. And we will prosper in business, but this is part of our training. And through that time, we learned to trust in source. And we're astonished. I remember we had 1 son and we had 2 on the way. And we were really, and no, that was the one time I saw Grace scared, when we had $65 in the bank. And Grace had probably the least fear barometer when it comes to financial support. She just steps out and goes straight out and says, well, I'll be fine. But she was genuinely scared that day. And that was the one time I said, we're actually going to be fine, but I don't know how. And I'd actually gone down to Centrelink that day for Social Security. And as I was sitting in the room, everything in me said, I can't do this. This is not who I am. And I, at the time, couldn't work because my health was an absolute mess.
Like I was in severe pain all the time in my body, could hardly even sit and do anything. And I had such a nervous system breakdown, I couldn't even type on a computer without pain, which made life a little bit difficult to work, as I'm sure you could appreciate, or do anything. And so I'm sitting there virtually disabled, and this is a side that I've never really shared with anyone, literally hating myself and life, because for me, it was the thought of being any kind of cripple was just the worst feeling in my life. And the only thing kept me was I had a high faith level because of my understanding of sacred writings. I knew I'd be fine and I'd heal. And bit by bit, I was improving. And I got myself to the point where I could do minimal stuff, but still I had no money. I'd made a decision I would not get a job no matter what. And I would have to trust in source until something opened up. And for many days and months, I got tested. And that particular day was when grace snapped. And I just said, Lord, let's just pray and trust. And that the phone just rang, and one of our friends said to Grace, look, this might sound weird, but surely you guys aren't in financial trouble, are you? Because I was told very specifically, I was about to give our tithe to church, and we were told to come straight out of your house quick, smart, and give you a whole lot of cash. Grace just burst into tears. But there was many events like that happened with us at that time. And then I won't bore you with the details now, but then some more, things opened up, and before we knew it, I was making good money very quickly. And in a whole new reign of things, a much more humble guy and more back on my path. So the point is, this is a very humbling, equalizing event that's happening right now. And we're all learning to take community responsibility. And look, I say this gently to all of you because you're all doing the right thing now. I can feel it. And just say, in a way, just a little bit of time to grow up a little bit and realizing what we hear, why we've been put here, and what's our next step, to move forward with. So Grace just made a comment. Yeah, look, I am going to do another talk tonight for those who would like to come. I just feel that this time right now, I'm going to share it around about 6 tonight, Perth time, which is 9 o'clock there. I'm going to share a little bit more tonight about the Council of Nine and what happened to me 2 years ago. So it's a little bit higher level than today. I'll still be simple in what I'm saying, but just so you know, if you want to come, you can. We'll get a link. I might even ask Edward if he can create a link and put it up here. Sam, because I was given a series of instructions for humanity and what was to come, but I was not permitted to fully reveal it at this time. And yeah, so that's why I said it'll be a little bit more kind of instructional on a bigger picture level, which is kind of a preparation more. So it's not going to tell you all the things you must do for right now. It'll more just guide you as to what's going to come next, so you can kind of start to ponder, mentally get yourself ready and allow yourself to move into that space so you're ready for it. So Sam's in straight away. Yeah, I love it, Sam. So yeah, I've got one in already. So look, I don't mind if only 4 or 5 people come. I really don't. I would rather have 4 or 5 people tonight who are just really, 100% in. That's where I'm at right now. Because I really do want Australia and do our key areas and families protected. I really do. I'm an oldest son, and those of you who are oldest children know that you want to protect your families. Deep down in all my strength and hardness, I'm a huge softie. Grace will tell you, and others, I cry a lot. I have often given up a lot of money many times to help people out and rescue people, sometimes irresponsibly when I really shouldn't have given money to them. Being far too soft in business and often too kind to staff, and fortunately now I've got Grace helping me because she's kind, but she's much harder than me in that area. And so yeah, look, that's just where I'm at. So yeah, look, Edward, if you can do me a favor and just, I'm not sure how we can do this. What we might do is we'll do up a link, and then straight after the webinar, we'll just put something on Facebook, on the City Awakening Facebook page, or on Warren Black's, on my personal page. So I'm presuming you're all friends. So Edward, if you could, I don't know if you can do it now or we're already on Zoom. I'm assuming not, but if you can create a link right now, do it. If you can't, that's fine. Maybe go to another computer, and then we can put it in the text chat as well. But it will be on Facebook.
Use the same link as we're using now, Warren.
Can we do that, can we?
Of course we can.
Oh, okay. That's easy. Yeah, just use the same link. So just remember that. Okay, I thought it was a one-off link. So Grace, I'm going to let you take it from here and guide what you think should be next.
Thanks, Warren. I must say that was a really brilliant sharing from you. Your heart and your mind were all in one, and your compassion was really coming through for the people. Not saying that it wasn't before or previous, but I love, you know, the skill and the talent that you've been given is to be able to interpret the scriptures, because it's so difficult to really understand and get your head around the metaphors and the parables, everything that the scripture talks about. And it's one of the most challenged book in the whole history of time. And to be able to simplify it and also match what it means to life in general, you did that really, really well, I must say. So
thank you.
Well,
I'm learning, so.
Yeah, it helps when you slow down, and your voice was very meditative, and particularly in the times of a lot of chaos right now, it's required to do that. So really what I would like to say is, with what's happening now, the first things first is take stock, take inventory of what's going on for you. That's the first rule of thumb. For example, when you go on the plane, and they go through the emergency procedure with you, what do they recommend? They recommend to put the mask on you first before your children. And so really, with what's going on, really look at what's going on for you, what's going on in your mind, what's going on in your emotions, what's triggering for you, what's going on for you with all these, what's happening in the world without, what's going on around there. And reflect in and just go back in within, really go into yourself and know thyself, really know yourself. That's the first rule of thumb. And again, take stock, take inventory, take all your emotions and really look, and don't deny anything, any fear. Don't deny it, just face it, just look at it, look in the mirror. That's the first thing I would say to begin with. Now, I think Christine wants to say something, wants to share as well.
First of all, Warren, thanks very much for going through all of that. For me, when you go through the scriptures and break it down and bring it to the practical, it really makes sense. And it was interesting that I'm starting to recognise, and it came out clearly for me today, was the metaphors. For instance, when you were talking about, the tabernacle and the COVID? Well, the whatever that was,
tent.
the tents. And you know, you showed the pictures, and I haven't been actually watching the news or anything, but I know that in various places, Natasha's from New Zealand, and she was telling us that they're rolling out these tents in New Zealand and stuff. And I thought, well, it's already written in the scriptures. And so when you explain it, you can see the metaphors of what's happening. So it actually brings what's written in the scriptures to the present for me. And it was really powerful. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So New South Wales and Victoria have just announced comprehensive lockdown, have they?
Yeah, we're in 48 hours. Even today, after all that was happening, Manly Beach had over 1,000 people. So, unfortunately, the Dumb and Dumber Award's going to go to New South Wales and Australia, and probably Victoria will win the second place.
In South Australia is locking down its borders.
Northern Territory locked its borders, as has Tasmania. So West Australia, right now in Queensland, the only two places that haven't, which interestingly goes in the exact order with what the underground movement and Daniel told us, Grace, where he talked about the level of consciousness, where he said Australia, West Australia was best, then Queensland, and then the rest of them, he said he just didn't like going there.
Yeah, for me to said it's locked down in Chicago as well. Well, I like what Isaac said right in the beginning is go within and meditate. So if you can meditate, because at least being isolated, it forces you to do things, you know, to slow down as well. But mainly, if you can meditate, slow your mind down, slow your emotions down, and really connect within the inner voice, because we are an extension of source anyway. So when you really grasp that you are an extension of source, just come back within and filter through the peace that only you can find within. You can't find it in the world without. You can only find it within. So I really encourage you some time to meditate, really connect again within yourself, know yourself, and take stock with all your emotionals, with what's going on. And again, as I say, reach out to us. And I do a lot of sessions with people, and to bring you into balance and to see an even perspective. Because as I do a lot of work through John DeMartini as well, and I love his work in terms of he brings in the quantum physics, transformation, and the science into the scriptures, and the science gives us the evidence of the spirit. And as he says, masters live in the world of transformation, not one of gain or loss. The masses, on the other hand, live in the illusion of gain and loss. So therefore, if we are truly mastering our life, we are bringing into transformation. That's what our work is, to bring into transformation what is going within the world without, and transform it within, and to bring balance to it. So that would be my last word. So Warren, if you got any last word, perhaps we can meet again tonight and continue to just touch base with one another and strengthen each other, because this is a time to really strengthen one another energetically and mentally and emotionally.
See, the funny thing is, Sammy, my partner, made a bit of a joke to me. She said, well, considering we've lived our life as a hermit the last few years, to the point where my family says, why do we never see you? I said, nothing's changed. I hardly leave my house apart from doing exercise anyway. And yeah, so look, my comforting words really is that what I have been saying to people, and it's only a minor comfort for now, I said most of what's going to happen in Australia will happen, I'm predicting, by somewhere between the 29th to 31st of March, it will calm down. And the reason I'm saying that is that, as well as spiritually, astrologically, the 29th of March is the end of the Mercury retrograde cycle. And by the end of the 31st, you end what's called a 7 loss cycle, which happens. Now, I won't explain that for now, because that will be another 20-minute teaching. But just take my word for now, and I can explain another time. So by about the 30th of March, so I'm predicting by Monday the 30th of March, so by this time next week, whatever's in place by then, it's unlikely a lot will change, except maybe a tiny few things over the couple of days after that. Okay? So the main thing right now is that I did like today, I feel that something we've all learned is I'm certainly learned to kind of, like I said, slow down, because I realized that was the one mistake I was making, which I'd fallen into, which with the tax wealth safe business, the big thing people rave to me about how good I am is my ability to make it simple. And I'm not the best tax expert by any means. I mean, I have mentors that are way better than me, but I'm just very good at making it simple. And I realized that was where I was falling down with what I was doing here. And so I'm really grateful to the people who are born with me, because over the coming days, in the early church, when they were going through great persecution and for their spiritual beliefs and not following the Roman Empire system, which was quite severe, and as Jesus, you would read about him, breaking their system could end up having you crucified on a cross where your nails are put into your hands and your feet, which, as you can imagine, is somewhat painful, and go through an excruciating death as your whole system breaks down. Either that or severe lashings of a whip. That was the kind of thing you faced, and which you still face in China today and have for some time if you have spiritual beliefs that differ from the system. I've actually got friends who know about this, like my friend who pastors in Melbourne can tell you, a fearless man who in Sri Lanka, if you got on the wrong side of the authorities with your spiritual teachings, the secret police would turn up and take you off and you'd never be seen again, just like V for Vendetta. They actually came to take him, and he said he spent hours in prayer that day, and he glared at he just, as soon as they walked in, he walked straight up to them. He felt this power come in. He said, "How dare you come to my house? What do you think you are? Who do you think you are?" And they stared at him in shock and said, "I apologize, sir," and they walked off. And he'll tell you about it. I've met some of the most fearless people you'll ever meet in your life who know the power of God to get through these times. I have a friend who had to go and live in the desert for a while for various reasons, and they had no food. And she would see food miraculously appear in her freezer. She'd just be told, "Open it." She would have a knock on her door and open the door, and there'd be food and everything waiting, a full meal, and there's no one for miles around. It's just the power of the higher source to look after you in a time like this is absolutely insane. That's why I do not fear this. My fear would be much more for humanity, for the whole experience, and just for everything, and just having to keep myself from getting corrupted by the consciousness around me, because I so just want to get in and help, and my natural rescuing tendency, which I'm learning to manage and subdue. So the point is, let's just see what's happening is the right path for now, because even as we speak right now in Venice, which has been polluted for some time, the canal apparently is no longer polluted. It's looking actually crystal blue water because no one goes on it anymore. They can't. Pollution is starting to clean up in a lot of places because of that, because no one was doing anything. I was driving on the road yesterday and I actually was saying to someone, it feels like Perth back 40 years ago when Mum and Dad would drive me around when I was really young. I said, in fact, even like 30, 35 years ago, it feels like how Perth used to be. I feel like I'm in a country town. So this is really cool. So, there's a benefit to all of this, as Grace had just put, a real benefit. So we can just embrace this time. And I've been watching opportunities like open up in business and investment like I could never imagine possible. I see millennials and I see people owning homes again, everyone being able to have a house, which is a basic human right, in my opinion, As Ian Ross says, gone back to 1980s, yeah. And I actually liked the 1980s. I actually did. I overall liked that period. So I like the churches that were around at that time. I like the music. And obviously things have shifted in the better in many other areas because things do balance. The point is, it's all got beautiful benefits for us all to really transform, all of us to change. And can you just imagine what's going to happen to everyone in the business and financial world? And the last thing I'll say for today is, can you just imagine in a short period from now, the ability to walk in and start cafes and businesses in empty properties for virtually nothing? We've been creating a manifestation, for example, for a huge block of land, which is right near us, that we wanted to set up an awakening center to help humanity, but the land is 20 million. And I was saying today, I said, I have a feeling that in not too distant future, we'll be able to walk in and give a concrete business plan to help humanity, and we'll get given it for free. And we'll get plenty of help to build that center and actually help humanity and build these centers all over the earth, so. But for now, there's a time for everything, and the time is what, and it is what it is now. That's the main thing. So let's embrace it. Just so we know, just so I've got an idea. So there's a few coming tonight. So Yep. So if you want to just give us a yes, who's coming tonight again, that would be great. Yep. Okay, great. Okay, beautiful. Yeah, in fact, Grace, Linus Perry just messaged me. You may remember him. He might be dropping over too. He's a prophet in America I know very well. He's very interested into this one. Yeah, so he may be able to, he's keen to listen to the recording of today and he may turn up, but Linus is a friend of mine and a prophet over in the US. So, like I said, wonderful things are coming out of this. So,
good to hear from him as well.
Oh no, absolutely. If Linus comes tonight, I'll ask him to briefly share. You know, he's a.
Oh, you guys would be blessed to actually hear from this man.
Yeah, he was an ex-CIA. I forgot to mention he was very high up in the government years ago, and was involved in.
CIA guy.
Yeah, he was involved in the way they kill people with untraceable poisons. When the CIA wanted to get rid of people, so he taught us a lot about what really went on, and he was one of the underground guys. He ran a mainline church, but he used to be ex-military, ex-army, very tough man physically, and yeah, he was involved in the direct CIA programs and hire. And when he had a powerful experience with Christ, he decided to leave there and got protected. And so he taught us a little bit about what goes on. So he's a very interesting guy to talk to. He doesn't talk about it when he preaches and that to people, but privately. And if he knows that we've got an awakened group, we might be able to get him to share one or two things. He normally doesn't say much though. So, okay, everyone. So look forward to seeing you, and let's raise our planet's vibration, and let's enjoy our lives and help our neighbours.
Well, before you go, Warren, how about time? Would 6 o'clock suit everyone? 6 o'clock our time?
Let's do 6 o'clock. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, 6 p.m. Perth time.
Yes.
Great. All
awesome.
Right. Thanks for being here, everybody. We'll see you later.
Thank you.